talking.
The low threshold of happiness.
There we go.
If we're out of here by 10. Yeah.
Welcome to the City of Battle Creek, Michigan, and the Battle Creek City Commission meeting for January 16th, 2024. It is 7 p.m. We're going to have a moment of silence for our invocation. Then I'll call upon Commissioner Patrick O'Donnell to lead us in the pledge. If you're able to stand, please stand for a moment of silence, and then we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Patrick O'Donnell. Commissioner Patrick O'Donnell.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the roll call. Madam Clerk, when you're ready.
Commissioner Ballard,
Present.
Commissioner Lance,
Here.
Commissioner Morris,
Here.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Here.
Mayor Banky,
Here.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Present.
Commissioner Simmons,
Here.
Commissioner Smith,
Present.
and Vice Mayor Sophia.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk, and thank you to the commissioners for being in attendance. I'd like to call upon our city manager to announce the beautiful Battle Creek Awards. Whoops, there she is. Thanks.
You just called in. Mayor, do you want me to say the address?
No, just the names if you could.
Okay. This is for, let's see, Rabierno Ramirez at 104 Greenville.
We'll get that to him then.
Okay. Lakeside Florist, Troy and Sandy Radcliffe at 744 Capitol Avenue.
Thank you very much for being here. Come on up. Thank you. No problem. Our beautiful Battle Creek Awards are one of my favorite presentations that we make on a quarterly basis. And it just thanks the people in our community who go above and beyond and really establish a threshold for other people in our community to get the idea that they're improving their properties. And a lot of people love doing it, and there's a lot of good stories. And I'd like to turn the microphone over to you guys and see if there's any good stories about the improvements that you've made to your property that you'd like to include here.
Or anything.
Beware of the assessment.
We've been in the business for 34 years, so it's been quite exciting for us. Started right from scratch, didn't have, it was just us. So we didn't buy another business, it was just us opening our shop. So coming into Lakeview is wonderful. We actually took over from a shop that was closed. The building was available, so we purchased the building from them and continued it on as a florist. And we've done a lot of improvements along the way, but just a little at a time as we could afford it. So it's been quite an ongoing project for us. This year has just been a wonderful year for us.
We actually just took on a new employee this year, and she, one of the things she was kind of getting on us about, she says, you've got this huge front porch out in front of your flower shop. Why are you not decorating it? So she took it upon herself, and that's why all the decorations you saw this year were really actually due to Rachel, one of our employees. So, and it's really been, it's turned out really well. A lot of people have really complimented us and commented on it. And I saw the guys pass through our parking lot and take a picture of it, so we kind of thought something was up. I think somebody from the city's out there photographing the shop. And yeah, she did a really good job, so appreciate the award.
We want to say thank you very much on behalf of the people of Battle Creek. We appreciate your investment in our community.
Okay, next up is Crystal Compton at 321 Weber Street.
We'll get that to Mrs. Compton.
And then Jennifer Jean Cockard at 1177 West Michigan.
We'll get that one to Mrs. DeCocker. Thanks. Next item on our agenda is the presentation. I'm going to turn it over to our city manager again.
Thanks. Again, Vicki joins us every commission meeting, so it's wonderful, but she's going to do our staff presentation tonight. 2024 is an incredibly busy year to be a city clerk and walk us through all these elections and the changes, but we're in good hands with Vicki. So Vicki, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll start out with, we have 3 very large elections this year. We start with our presidential primary, which is on February 27th, followed by the state primary, which is August 6th, and then the general election November 5th. We've not been informed yet if we'll have a May election. That's generally reserved for the schools or any local proposals to go on the ballot. But right below that, you can see the early voting dates. This is our first time with early voting. There's 9 days of early voting, and it begins the second Saturday prior to Election Day and goes all the way through the Sunday prior to Election Day. So my presentation is going to let you know a little bit of what you need to know to vote in all of the elections in our community. So I'll start first with voter registration. In order to vote, whether it's by absentee, at early voting, or on Election Day, you must first be registered. We try to encourage everybody to register prior to Election Day, although you can register in the last 14 days and including Election Day, but it gets to be kind of busy. You may stand in line. We generally, if you do that, we do encourage you to do your voting by absentee, but you're always welcome to do it at a precinct on Election Day. But we really want to encourage everybody to register prior to Election Day. And although this screen has a lot going on it, I'm not going to read all of it, but it does give you the eligibility to be able to register to vote, the different ways you can register to vote, whether that be online or by mail or in the clerk's office. In the last 14 days before the election, you cannot register to vote for that particular election online or by mail. You must come to the clerk's office and you must provide ID and proof of residency in order to register. The next screen talks about photo ID requirements. There are many different photo ID options. We ask that you bring those when you're registering to vote, when you're applying or returning an absentee ballot, or when you come to vote at an early voting site or at the polling precinct on Election Day. If you do not have your vote or your photo ID with you, you are welcome to fill out a form. It's called an affidavit of voter not in possession of photo ID, and you're affirming that you do not have your photo ID with you at that time, but your vote will still count. So the first one is absentee voting. In 2018, Proposal 18-3 was approved by our voters, which made it so that any voter could vote with an absentee ballot. You used to have to choose one of 6 reasons to vote absentee, but you no longer have to do that. You can submit your AV application either online or with the clerk's office. This year, a change is we're going from a permanent absentee voter list to a permanent AV ballot list. So when you complete your AV application this time, there's a box that you can check that allows you to be on the permanent ballot list. So in the future, if you check that, you will no longer have to complete an application for an absentee ballot before every election. We will automatically mail the ballot to you. And all of our AV applications and AV ballots will now have the little pre-postage paid emblem on the top, so you're not required to put a stamp on the envelope. You can simply put your ballot in the envelope and return it to us, and it will get to us, and it's already prepaid. Accessible voting is something that is relatively new. Accessible voting is for people who have difficulty, have disabilities or an impairment, such as being blind, visually impaired, a learning disability, or those with a physical disability that interferes with holding or manipulating paper or pen and pencil. It does not have to be a permanent disability. It could be that you broke your hand or bones in your hand and you cannot manage to complete the ballot. So this is an alternate form. All ballots are due to the clerk's office by 8 p.m. on Election Day. This is another absentee form of voting. It's called Move or Uokava. This is for absent uniformed military voters or overseas voters, say somebody who's living in France for a couple years. All they have to do is go to fvap.gov, complete a form. It will automatically be sent to the appropriate clerk, and then we can send them a ballot, whether it's by mail, fax, or email. And they only have to complete this form one time, and it is good for all elections in that 12-month period. So if you know anybody who is serving in our military and they are not in their place of residence, whether it's overseas or say in another state, say Texas or something, encourage them to vote. Encourage them to fill out this form. It's very easy and convenient for everyone. One difference this year, because of the distance or possibly being in a different country, military and overseas ballots now, as long as they are postmarked by Election Day, will be tabulated if they are received to the local clerk's office within 6 days after Election Day, which is nice. So the big change this year is early voting. Early voting is for 9 days. As I said previously, it begins the second Saturday prior to Election Day and goes all the way through the Sunday before Election Day. For the city of Battle Creek and city of Springfield and Bedford and Penfield Townships, we have formed an agreement and we will work together to facilitate early voting at the Cool Family Center. And then the other municipalities within Calhoun County, their early voting site will be at the county building on the 3rd floor up in Commission Chambers. Early voting is only available at the 2 locations that are listed there. You cannot go to your Election Day precinct to vote early. That is only for Election Day. However, you are welcome to bring your completed absentee ballot to the early voting site to be tabulated if you wish to do that. So you don't have to necessarily drop it off at the clerk's office. But one caution, any ballot that you bring to an early voting site and put into a tabulator cannot be spoiled at a later date because it's now been tabulated. And we have no way of identifying one person's ballot for another, so it is not able to be spoiled. For the city of Battle Creek, we will have our early voting from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. those 9 days. And this is just kind of a simple little calendar that tells you the days to look for on your calendar. This here is a map that was provided to us by Calhoun County Clerk's Office, which gives a kind of a visual. So in the northwest corner of the county are the 4 municipalities that will be in the municipal agreement, and then all of the other municipalities within Calhoun County will be at the Calhoun County building site. So our location will have 4 municipalities and 28 precincts. The county site will have 19 municipalities and 28 precincts also, and we will serve almost 60,000 voters at our location. This here was courtesy of Rick Bolick. He's our chief building official. We wanted to make sure that the Cool Family Center, the room where we're holding the early voting, could accommodate as many voters as possible. The expected turnout in November, based on other states who offer early voting, Election Day voting, and absentee voting, is about 1/3 of the voters will come and participate in early voting, which for our center would be over 200 people, 200 voters every hour. So Rick designed the floor plan to ensure that we could accommodate that many voters every hour. And this is just an example of the parking lot. I worked with Christy and Mallory to help identify where the bus stops were at the Cool Family Center, and there are a few. There are 2 on the north side, and there is 1 all the way on the south corner near the Math and Science Center. So early election day voting at your precinct, which is shown on your voter ID card that we send to you, Election Day voting begins at 7 a.m. and goes all the way till 8 p.m. But you must vote at your assigned precinct. So you simply have to look at your voter ID card to find your assigned precinct and address, or you're welcome to go to mi.gov/vote where you can find where your precinct is. You must be registered to vote when you arrive at your precinct, or they will send you to the clerk's office to register, because you cannot register at that site. And we do ask everybody to bring their photo ID. The poll workers will ask for it, but again, if you don't bring your photo ID, they will ask you to sign an affidavit affirming that you are not in possession of your ID. You are also welcome to take your absentee ballot to an election day precinct, and you may tabulate it while you are there. If you're in line by 8 p.m., you still have the right to vote. And this is kind of our plug, and Commissioner O'Donnell is always very good at helping me with this. We are always in need of election inspectors or poll workers. The qualifications are that you must be 16 years of age. If you are 18 years of age or older, you must be registered to vote in the state of Michigan. You must be a resident of the state of Michigan. You cannot have a felony or election crime conviction. You cannot be an election challenger, a candidate, a member of a candidate's immediate family, or a member of the local board of canvassers. You must affiliate with a political party. And in Michigan, we don't require that voters register with a political party, but for purposes of election inspectors, we want to make sure that representation is fair and balanced at all of our polling locations, so that if a voter needs assistance, they can receive fair assistance from both a Republican and a Democrat. You're able to go onto the city's website or the state's website and complete an application to work as an election inspector. And that's pretty much the end of it.
Are there any questions for our clerk? Roger, you have one?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. On that Democrat and Republican, if the person is independent and you don't have one of the other two, is that a third alternative for you?
No, it is not. So independent is not a recognized party affiliation in the state of Michigan. There are other options, such as the Taxpayers Party, the Green Party. There's a couple others, and you can choose those also.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Patrick O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to say, if you do have opportunity to work, please do. It's quite a rewarding day of service to your community to see how the votes work. Even if you can't make those hours, we still need workers in the evening time too to process ballots.
Not so much the evening time, but we are willing to accommodate partial shifts on election day.
Well, I meant like in the evening when we have the receiving boards, or is
Oh,
that?
yes.
Yeah, I mean, the receiving board's only like a couple hours in the evening.
Yep.
If you can't make that long shift, and those are very helpful because a lot of these people have worked a long day from 6 o'clock really all the way till 8 o'clock, and they'd like to just have their paperwork checked, and they train you right away and get you in and out. So, but thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you as always, Vicki.
You're
Wonderful presentation, and thank you for the work that you and your team do. Curious, regarding in-person early voting, will resources be available to our Burmese and Spanish-speaking neighbors should they arrive, or is that something that we're going to need to prepare ahead of time?
They would have to prepare ahead of
Okay.
time. I will tell you that we, just last year, when we had our voter assist terminal devices updated, we did ask that they include Spanish on that. That was one of the options. Actually, it was the only other option other than English. So that if a voter has an inability to read their ballot, they are welcome to use the voter assist terminal, and it will pull up their ballot in Spanish.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other commission comments? Once again, Vicki, we want to say thank you very much for the information.
You're welcome.
Chair noting any added or deleted resolutions.
There were none?
Next item on our agenda is petitions, communications, and reports.
Yes, a communication was received from Mr. Bates regarding transit services, and this communication was forwarded to the commissioners on Saturday, January 13th.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item on our agenda is a public hearing. When you're ready, Madam Clerk.
This public hearing is to obtain citizen input on the temporary service changes necessitated by staffing shortages that have extended beyond the intended 12-month period at Battle Creek Transit.
We'll declare the public hearing open, and before we start, I'm going to go to our city manager, who will introduce our transit director.
Thanks. To get this public hearing started, I'm going to invite Mallory Avis up. She's got a brief presentation she wants to share. So many of the things that we have to do as the transit agency in the city are what we do regularly. And it can get confusing about what we're asking, you know, what is mandatory, what is required, and then what is based on what we might be experiencing right now. So Mallory, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. Next slide, please. Then, perfect. So I just want to give a quick preface as to why we are having a public hearing. In December of 2022, Battle Creek Transit made what was intended to be temporary service reductions. And those service reductions have unfortunately extended beyond a 12-month period. Per federal regulation with the Federal Transit Administration and city resolution, any change that lasts beyond 12 months is considered a permanent change, even though the intent was for it to be temporary. And any permanent change, therefore, requires a public hearing. Similar to what we did with the fare increase, that is what we are here for today. December of 2022, we were experiencing our first taste of the severe driver shortage. At this time, we had 7 open positions, and we had 8 drivers off on extended leaves. 15 of our 26 positions were unfilled, meaning we had no driver in the seat of the vehicle. That forced us to cut service. And unfortunately, that service cut eliminated Saturday service. It eliminated frequency among multiple routes, so combined half-hour routes. And then for Teletransit and BC Go, it eliminated Saturday service, eliminated midnight service, and eliminated late-night service on BC Go. During this time, we explored some new scheduling ideas and parameters with our frontline staff. We came to the table with them, and we came up with creative schedules that would allow us to maintain as much service as we could. And unfortunately, we weren't able to maintain those schedules. And so, next slide, please. In May of 2023, although we were still experiencing a driver shortage, we restored a small level of service on some of our busier routes. However, we reduced our demand response service to focus primarily on ADA paratransit. ADA paratransit is federally required of us, and so we focused our resources on providing fixed route service and then our federally required ADA paratransit. At this time, we came to an agreement with ATU to hire non-CDL vehicle operators, and we started hiring part-time vehicle operators. In August of 2023, we had to expand some of those service reductions again. At this time, we had 7 open positions. We had 5 off on long-term leaves, and then we had 3 in training. Again, we were back to the 15 of our 26 positions being unfilled or no driver in that seat. At this time, we started exploring what it would look like to provide service with non-CDL vehicles. In an attempt again to maintain our fixed route service, we put large teletransit vehicles out there, using our non-CDL drivers that we had started hiring in May. At this time, we also began shutting down at lunchtime, an opportunity to give our drivers who were working long hours a break, and also alleviated the need for an additional driver who would have previously provided those lunch breaks. In September, next slide please. In September of 2023, that was probably our most significant cut to date. At that point, it's probably easier to count the number of drivers that we did have rather than the number of drivers that we didn't have. In September, when we made our service cuts, we had 8.5 drivers because one of those was a part-time. 8.5 drivers to cover all of our routes was next to impossible. It forced our drivers to work 14-hour days, 5 days a week, and that's not sustainable, nor is that safe. And so as a result, we had to cut service. That service cut looks like what is in operation today, ending service at 3:45 p.m., continuing the lunch shutdown, and we created what we call a closer route. So one opportunity, because we shut down so much earlier in the day, one route that would go around the city and essentially make kind of that last connection on that last run of the day. We focused our efforts at this point on non-CDL driver recruitment and increasing the number of non-CDL vehicles we had on the road. We took advantage of all of our BC Go licenses so that we had, even our teletransit vehicles were operating BC Go service, so that we could meet that demand that we knew was out there that we just couldn't fill with the CDL driver shortage. At this point, we had maximized the number of vehicles in our non-CDL fleet. Next slide, please. Throughout all of these service reductions, we have also been focusing on recruitment and retention. We negotiated wage increases, longevity, other compensatory benefits with the union in November of 2022. All of those are still in effect, but we need to start thinking creatively and thinking differently about how we're going to attract people to a career, right? Not a job, a career in public transit. Next slide, please. Our advertising efforts have included social media. We've done paid advertisements on both the radio, through social media, and then even, for example, before a movie, right? You have a captive audience, and we've taken advantage of that. This still has failed to get applicants. I will give you an example of our current situation today. We've received, over the last couple of weeks, we've received a total of 26 applications. 14 of those showed up for testing, our preliminary testing for the position. 9 of those individuals passed the testing. 5 were scheduled for interviews today, and we completed 3 interviews today. So what started as a pool of 26 applicants ended with 3 potential candidates, and that's assuming we make an offer to all 3 people that we interviewed today. Beyond that, even if they were great candidates and we made those offers today, we're looking at 6 to 12 weeks before they're actually on the road. If they do not have their CDL currently, they have to go through a pretty intensive CDL training process. Next slide, please. One of the issues that we hear in Battle Creek is that the community feels like this is a Battle Creek issue. We feel like we have bad transit in Battle Creek. We feel like we aren't doing enough as a city, or that this is a Battle Creek transit problem or a City of Battle Creek problem, and this is not. This is a national problem. This is just a handful of articles that you could find with a simple Google search of transit driver shortage. Search CDL shortage, and you get school bus drivers, schools not having service or not having school that day because they don't have enough drivers to complete the routes. It applies to freight. We are not the only ones who are experiencing this, and it extends beyond just drivers. It includes maintenance and utility positions as well. Next slide, please. APTA, the American Public Transit Association, conducted a survey last year because obviously this is a national issue. We want to identify what is causing this shortage. Those survey results showed us that 96% of transit agencies are experiencing the same shortage we're experiencing, and 84% of those have had to reduce service because of it. 43% of our transit workforce is over the age of 55, which means that 34% of those people are retiring. And then if you were to talk to one of our transit drivers, you would hear about what they experience while they're out there. This isn't a unique Battle Creek issue. This is, again, a national issue. Transit driver assaults have increased 121% since the pandemic. Next slide, please. In addition to this, federal regulations have made it more difficult to get a CDL, and federal drug testing and alcohol testing requirements, as well as background checks and driver vehicle record requirements, have made it more difficult for us to hire and attract candidates. Our schedules are not appealing. This is, again, an industry issue. At full service, we operated from 5 a.m. until midnight. Think of childcare. That schedule doesn't work for somebody who has small children at home. Being a union shop, the least desirable shifts and least desirable runs go to those who are newest, right? And oftentimes, they're not able to last. 1 in 4 of our applicants will make it a year. And that's, again, not just a Battle Creek Transit statistic. That is a national statistic as an industry as a whole. Within a year, our drivers are burned out or decide that this just is not the career for them. And then, as I mentioned, if you were to do a satisfaction survey of your drivers, the public, beyond, second to compensation, interacting with the public is the biggest complaint that drivers have about their jobs. It is difficult. They deal with mental health. They deal with addiction. They deal with people from all walks of life, and they often do it without recognition. Next slide, please. And so the question is, what are we doing? Obviously, additional operational funding would always be welcome, and there's always a way to throw money at a problem. But we're not experiencing a budget issue. We're experiencing a human resource issue. We just don't have the applicants, and we don't have the people interested in coming into this industry. And so that's forcing us to look at how we provide service differently. It's forcing us to create internal teams to work together with our frontline staff to create schedules that are appealing to retain employees. It is shifting our focus to the available resources we do have, such as non-CDL applicants, and evaluating our services. As I mentioned, this is not a budget issue. In the event that we have a influx of applications and qualified people to start, we can restore service. This service reduction that we're experiencing is still intended to be temporary, and we are still planning to bring service back to full levels. Whether that looks like it did in December of 2022 or not, our goal is still to provide the same level of service. I am here to answer any questions that you might have.
All right. We're going to proceed with the public hearing, and then if we have any questions afterwards, we'll get to you, Mallory. We're going to start with the first row. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in the first row? Yes, ma'am. Do we have a microphone that we could bring to you? Thank you, Mallory.
We need these buses. I have to go get my medicine every day up at the hospital before 7:30. And I am always 10 minutes late to get my medicine. I only got 6 toes, and I got bone infection, tendonitis in my feet. And I got medicine running through my foot, and I got a bag on my side. We need the bus bad.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the third row that'd like to speak? All right, if no one's in the third row, David Moore, please.
My name is David Moore. I rode a bus for, for 50, 60 years. And it's just as we have to have. I mentioned that many times while I was up here. Seemed like there's something more that can be done. We got a drug problem, so she mentioned here a little while ago. Drug problems, drugs and alcohol is too easy to get. These bars are open, discouraging these drug dealers and these people cause drinking. And I sport having good experienced drivers, and have a bus driver on time, and a bus driver goes out, what he's getting into. I see all that. Well, I personally think something more can be done, but with drugs, it's problems all these companies are having. People are getting on drugs. There's so much. We get more mental help, and instead of putting people in prison and get more mental health for these people. A lot of the problems is around drugs and alcohol. And we can solve a lot of that problem, eliminate a lot of these drug places. It will help this quite a bit. But I do feel there's a lot more that can be done. It's just this system we need to have. We're not getting the support for this. So I can't say much. I hope I can say something useful here as this last couple of minutes. But, so I can say,
Thank you, David. Is there, in the third row? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Part of the problem, I think, for the city is the low morale and the ill will that's being generated by this. I spoke with a woman who said, no one cares. Spoke with a man who said the city doesn't care. Those are hard things to say and to mean and to feel. I spoke with a woman who said, I'm sick and tired of this mess. I had a 10 a.m. medical appointment, and I had to leave my house at 6 a.m. to get there. And if the if the appointment had not ended when it did, the next bus to take me back home would have been in 2 more hours. So she would have been at her medical appointment for an additional 2 hours waiting for the next bus. That's an idea of how the inconvenience is affecting people. I spoke with a local mother who's not a bus rider, but she said she has 2 children. One's on the East Coast in college and the other's on the West Coast in college, and neither one of them will consider coming back to Battle Creek because we don't even have the basic amenity of a good bus system. I know there's problems, but we've got to do something about it. And if that means changing the whole system over to small, on-demand vehicles, then do it. But right now, it's catching a lot of people out, and people are really, really hurting. I know that's not what anyone wants. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else in the third row? Yes. If you could state your name for the record.
Oh, did she say her name? Yeah, Richard Bates. Okay. Let's see. Sometimes there's 2 hours between buses when there's no buses when they have a lunch stuff. So let's see. Sometimes if you go somewhere, you would have longer wait or whatever, some of that to get a bus or whatever. And if the ones stopping when they do, it's like you have to you wouldn't necessarily have as much time to shop or whatever, or you might have to get the last bus to be able to be home or something like that, or if you get the last bus, you wouldn't. If it's an hour bus, you wouldn't necessarily have a bus to transfer to. If you we're at a store and stuff like that, things like that. Let's see. So, anyways, I think it would be good if it was restored back to the way it was before. So, I think that's all.
Thank you very much for your comments. Is there anyone else in the fourth row? All right, we'll go to the fifth row. We'll go to the sixth row. Autumn Smith, please.
Good evening. I just was wondering, and perhaps it was in the chart and it maybe wasn't explained or I didn't catch it, but perhaps if there's a 120+% of assault, that's not going to be very attractive. And perhaps there could be a sign-on bonus, pay increase, something to negotiate hazard pay possibly. Because I mean, anytime you enter a field, like if you go into military, you know that's a hazardous occupation. if you go, there are certain things, but you wouldn't suspect that transit would be, and obviously, according to the stats, if there's 121% chance you're going to be assaulted and you're making 18 bucks an hour, perhaps maybe a sign-on bonus, perhaps maybe some negotiation for risk, something like that could be negotiated, because it's made it a less attractive field if that is what's going on. And like she said, it's not just anything local, it's nationwide. So maybe some contract terms need to be negotiated to make the job more appealing if there's going to be a higher risk. Thank you.
You're welcome. And finally, the last row, the 7th row, is there anyone there? Okay, we'll go over to the other side of the commission chambers, the 7th row. Is there anyone in the 7th row? Seeing none, the 6th row. No one in the 6th row. We'll go to the 5th row. We'll go to the 4th row. Reese, we're in the 3rd row now.
Good evening, Reese Atkins, 3600 West Michigan. I understand as any business that we have is having troubles, shortage of hiring people. My main thing that I see that is a problem right now is getting some type of transportation on a Saturday. A lot of your factories, a lot of your businesses do work on a Saturday of at least putting something out there, even if it's just the smaller vehicles that people can use to get transportation on a Saturday until we can get everything back up to normal, because I know several people that have had to not work or even walk from this area of town all the way out into the fort because their factory that they work at is telling them, well, you have to be here or you don't have a job, and they can't afford a car, so they don't have one or they don't have a license. So what are they forced to do, especially in these cold weathers? They're forced to walk. So I would like to see looking at least getting something back on a Saturday for these people that are working out at the factories or working other businesses, so that they have a way to get to work, so we don't end up with somebody that is serious with frostbite or even killed because they're out there walking these streets because they have no transportation to get back and forth on a weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Reese. Is there anyone else in the 3rd row? Yes, John.
John Kinnovic, 234 South Avenue. I would suggest to the City Commission that you do a serious study of all the transit systems within the state of Michigan. Flint, Michigan, in 2021, took in a few $1 million, but they went $45 million in debt for the operating expense of that for 1 year. The next year, which was 2022, they added and had more money going through the transit system, about $2 million, but it was $50 million to operate that system, so they went about $45 million deep in debt. Over a 2-year period, they went $91 million in red ink. Kalamazoo went into red ink. Jackson went into red ink. Battle Creek transit system went into red ink for the years that it's operating. The biggest problem that we have is not just what's going on, but a lot of transit systems are more effective than our system currently. You obviously, by listening to what goes on up here, know that the service, as I pass through, always see buses mostly empty, the large buses. I've seen a small Battle Creek van that was the Battle Creek Go, and if it had one person or 2 people that would sit in it, I'd be surprised. That would be a too short of a situation. It is not effective. I talked with Hastings Transit System, and they say we are nothing like the Battle Creek system. They may be more effective. They also do school systems when they're doing their transit system in the Hastings-Berry County area. I have no problems with the concept of what they're doing, except that it seems that most of the infrastructure of whatever you're doing tends to end up, unfortunately, in failures. You have shortages. There's a reason for that. It's not an incentive maybe to be a bus driver. But on the other hand, if you're going to run into the ground, the taxpayers are paying that ultimate cost, and that's added to the taxpayer expense of what they owe at the federal government level. Thank you.
Reverend Steiner, did you want to come up? You're in the 2nd row. All right.
is Jerry Steiner. I live at 115 South 26th Street. And I think we've had this conversation before, a couple of years ago, right? When you raised the bus prices 40%. I don't mean to rub that in y'all chest. I'm lying. I do mean to rub it in your chest. When you raise the bus prices 40% and pass them on to the public, you kind of think it's going to work. Well, y'all know how I stood on that. Let me tell you about this bus thing. Everywhere I go, the Battle Creek Transit is looked down upon. I stay out by Myers, and the bus used to come through there and stop at Dollar Tree. The Dollar Tree people don't even want the bus stopping there. They didn't move the bus stop. Y'all got an internal problem, and it seems to be thrown on the backs of the public. You know, it seems like, and everything something happen, you take some money from the people that don't have no money. You got a system that's antiquated. I never had this problem when I was coming up in the Battle Creek bus system, you know? I mean, I guess some progress brings about no progress. I think y'all got a problem you got to solve, and you got to solve it real quick, because this lady and a whole bunch of others got to get to their appointments on time, and y'all got to come up with a solution, and it just can't be some patchwork or some Band-Aid or something you think might work when you're back there in your chambers and you're kicking it around and figuring out how you're going to solve some of these problems. You're not going to solve them by not motivating the people. You're not going to solve them by having the people give input like these folks been coming up here today. I kind of like to think that when you meet in a public forum like this, you know, your opinions and your comments are taken to heart. I got to be honest with y'all. You know, since I've been coming down here, trying to speak for people who don't have a voice or don't feel that their voice is being heard, kind of wears on you a little bit, you know, because we all gonna need each other, whether we realize it or not. May not be right now, may not be tomorrow, but we gonna need one another. And until we learn how to include everybody in this fiasco we're involved in, we're going to continue to have problems. Now, I've been away town a little while, but I'm back now, and y'all going to hear from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steiner. Is there anyone in the first row? All right, did anyone not have a chance to speak? Okay, Mallory, would you please come forward? Is there any questions of Mallory at this time? Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I don't think I'm breaking any new ground here when I say the era of mass transit, as we've all conventionally know it, is probably over. There's change in the air, and I would like to, and this isn't simply, you know, cyclical change where we're going to find, you know, the economy's going to bounce back and everything's going to go back to normal. I feel like we have, as many of you alluded to, you know, deep structural issues that are not unique to Battle Creek, but rather unique to mass transit in general. So I'd like to hear from Mallory, because I know you're doing some really innovative things. You're doing some really, you know, clever things with the resources we have. What does the future of transit in Battle Creek look like to you, especially, you know, with the caveat being Battle Creek is geographically one of the largest cities in the state. You know, what type of stuff, where do you see BC Transit in the next, you know, 5, 10 years, or even the TAC? And how does it operate differently from, you know, what we did 5 years ago? You know, what change is coming down the pike?
So I think we will always be a city where we have a need for fixed route amongst certain corridors. So I'm going to use the VA, Fort Custer route, for example. You know, pre-pandemic, that was a bus full, standing room only. The same thing with our Southwest Capital route. You have people with grocery carts and strollers and people with wheelchairs that are more efficiently moved using large fixed route buses. I think what we're going to see Battle Creek transition to is a combination of what we call microtransit and fixed route service. These complementary services that complete what we call the first and last mile. So Perhaps it's a virtual bus stop that uses our microtransit BC Go style system to get people to that connection downtown at the transfer center to connect with fixed route. Agencies across the country are switching to this microtransit concept. And for us, anything that's a 14-passenger vehicle or smaller doesn't require a CDL, and so that's where we're focusing our efforts currently. There will still be a need in the future for those fixed routes, those big buses, like what was on the commission agenda last month. And then at the same time, those changeovers take time. So as you alluded to, we're talking 5 years. For example, if I ordered a 14-passenger vehicle today, we're looking at probably about 12 months before that vehicle is actually on the road. And that's just a supply chain issue and federal procurement requirement issue.
I like that first and last mile, really goes along, really encapsulates it well. So thank you, Mallory, I appreciate it.
Any other comments by the commission? Commissioner Ballard and Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make a couple comments. I hear everybody's out here talking about what the need is, and I feel the need. I understand that. It's not that we're ignoring that, and I think Mallory is bending over backwards trying to accommodate getting employees. That seems to be the #1 issue at this time. The second is, I've tried to see in those buses as they go by, and we have advertising on them, so I don't know how we can see in there that they're half empty. And then lastly, I had the opportunity today, as I help another senior in the area get to doctor appointments, to work with senior services. Now, I know this is for seniors, but it is another avenue. And so they referred me to Community Action, thank you. Community Action. And within 15 minutes, I was able to set 8 appointments 2 weeks out from today through the mid-February period. And I was elated that they were able to handle that for me. So don't forget that there are some other avenues other than the public transportation. Now, I'm talking about senior citizens, I know that, but I just want to make sure they're aware of it. So Community Action.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Mallory, we've talked before about these micro transits and last mile type of getting around town, which is very unique. It's going to take time. We know that. We used to have a lot of micro buses here that we've changed now to the bigger buses, and most likely it'll take time to transition to that. But some of the other problems that we have, of course, we talked about employment. That's everybody's looking, but the repair industry, the amount of hours somebody has to drive has changed. Look at the trucking industry. It's the same thing as our transportation industry. These regulations. Now, I want us to be safe, but there's got to be some type of leeway in that. But right now, we are in a crisis. We do care. It does break my heart to know that people can't make it to the doctor. And I'm a big fan of autonomous automobiles, which can alleviate some of that transportation. It's not here yet. We're looking 5, 6, 10 years down the road to perfect that. But let's find something unique. I'm just sitting here, I'm like, if these employers are so wanting to have these people come by, why can't they do a consortium of a microbus themselves to do a route to make sure that their employees that they need, can we look into that? But then I think about that, what are the insurances? What are the laws? What are the lawyers? There's so much that's intertwined. It's like a spider web. It's not one answer. And that's what breaks all of our hearts here today. Why can't we have that magic dagger to make sure that everyone can make it to their doctor's appointment, get their groceries, see their friend to play bridge with on the other side of town, something. But the thing is, it's going to take big move in the city of people stepping forward to say, you know what, I can't do the whole thing, I can't eat that whole elephant, but I can help you take a bite. And until we get to that point, that's what we're gonna need and I'm talking to the businesses out there. If you can find a way, I'm not a legal person, I wouldn't know, but there's gotta be somebody out in the, out there says, I really did need that person. How do I find a micro transit to get them to come to work and 2 or 3 other people to make sure they can come? Grocery stores, they talk about the deliveries and the things like that, but there's other ways of making this minor changes happen so we can have major growth in the future of this town and the transportation that you're looking forward to have. So thank you for allowing us to have a public hearing to bring this out.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. So Mallory, can you talk a little bit, so you gave us some statistics about kind of the violence and some of the things that some of the drivers are experiencing. Is that statistic also good for kind of the alternative transit, the non-CDL trans
It is
vans?
not seen as frequently in what we consider demand responsive service. Driver assaults are not seen as frequently. It's primarily seen on our fixed route services.
Okay. So, and then can you also talk a little bit, CDL drivers, they have to, there's the drug test and the driving, you've got to have a good driving record and things like that. Do those same rules apply for the non-CDL drivers? Can you talk a little bit about the requirements for people, should someone be interested in applying for that type of a position?
Yes, unfortunately, all of those same regulations apply. The only one that doesn't is all of the additional training required to get the CDL. So all of our staff, essentially except for some management level positions, are considered safety sensitive. So including our dispatchers, our maintenance workers, and our utility workers, those are all safety sensitive positions, which means they are subject to pre-employment, reasonable suspicion, and random drug and alcohol testing. That is a barrier. We have seen the pre-employment tests that people have failed increase. We've even had to separate employment with individuals who have tested positive. And again, that's the industry as a whole, but it's not something we saw as frequently prior to the legalization of recreational marijuana.
And is there any talk, I get that we don't get to set the rules for CDL drivers and things like that. Is there any talk federally about changing some of those regulations, or no?
At this time, there's not, that I'm aware of, any talk about changing what substances are tested for. However, last year they introduced oral fluid testing. And the idea behind oral fluid testing is that the concentration detection is different. So currently, we use urine testing, and so THC, for example, can appear in urine much longer, doesn't necessarily indicate impairment, right? Oral fluid testing detects a much smaller window of use, and so the hope, I believe, at the federal level is that this will reduce the number of positive test results that we get.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we're going to declare the public hearing closed at this time, and then we're going to take a 3 to 5 minute break so that the people that want to leave are able to do so at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't think anybody left. I watch them, they sit in the restaurant, they'll sit there for hours waiting for one call. I'm like,
Next item on our agenda is the public comment regarding consent agenda and resolutions not on the consent agenda. If you'd like to make a public comment regarding the consent agenda and resolutions not on the consent agenda, please raise your hand and we will acknowledge you to come forward to the podium. You will have 3 minutes to make your comment. Please state your name and address before beginning your comment and indicate which resolutions you're speaking to. Are there any public comments at this time? Are there any public comments? Yes, Autumn Smith?
Good evening. I'm commenting, there's obviously a large number of the resolutions appointing people to different boards. So I'm just going to speak in generalities. I see a couple different resolutions where we have multiple, the definition, the term is called interlocking directorates. And what it is it's when multiple people that are already on boards are continuously sitting on boards, other boards, kind of like a revolving door. And I'm kind of wondering, while it may be legal, is there a reason why? Was there a lack of citizen interest or something? So you had to like slide people over that are like already on one board onto another board, or already on a commission onto another commission and stuff. That's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any other public comments at this time? Yes, John.
John Kennefic, 234 South Avenue. I have 2 resolutions I'll be talking about. One is Resolution 345. It has to do with the what's called the American Rescue Plan. It's the second amount of money this year to be given to the Share Center. For the last year and this year, the total they will get will be approximately $111,000. And I'll interlace that with another resolution you have here, which is called Resolution 347. And that has to do with the nonprofits of the local coordinating committee that votes on money. And I'll kind of explain what happens here. The federal government, Federal Transit Authority or agency, transfers money to all the states. Money comes from the federal government and goes to the Michigan Department of Transportation. And then they break that up into all the different transit systems throughout the state. There are 77 of those throughout the state. Now, when the money comes to the city of Battle Creek through that money from the Michigan Department of Transportation, but is really federal funds, then an amount of money is set aside or out of that that goes to 5013 nonprofits. For the local coordinating committee, members of the local coordinating committee are also the employees of the 5013Cs that those applications are put in. Here's an example. Terry Yeoman's Community Action, they will receive to this application $40,278. We have Mary Frisbee, Marion Birch Adult Daycare $18,725. Rhonda Obstrander, I can't pronounce it, Cook, Community Inclusive Recreation, $55,316. Now, the federal government runs at a deficit. And when they don't have enough money coming in from the tax dollars, then the deficit increases. We always hear how the federal government is going to shut down, and they're reaching and just beyond $34 trillion just for the national debt. Now, that means that every tax-paying citizen gets the privilege right now of paying $264,000 plus back to the federal government just for the federal deficit. People are voting themselves money on these committees for their own 501(c)(3)s, which they are employees of. Do you want to vote yourselves money from the public treasury? Can other people? Usually in the past they would recuse themselves, but the local coordinating committee was designed so that they could vote themselves money from the public treasury. And this is why we have deficit problems. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments at this time? Yes, Chuck Asher.
Chuck Asher, 961 Glencroft Lane in Battle Creek. I would like to speak in support of Resolution 347. I served on the LCC for a number of years. I now serve on the LAC. I can tell you, I also worked for Community Action at the time, and I suppose I was voting money to our funds, but every penny of that money goes to provide transportation for people with disability in Calhoun County. So I support Resolution 347, and I hope you do too.
Thank you very much, Chuck. Any other public comment? Yes, David Moore.
Well, David Moore again. I've spoken before on people we pick for these committees. I'd like to repeat again, but I'd like to know a little more, and everybody here know who's on these committees. And people out here, the people of Battle Creek, the homeowners, everybody, just don't know who these people are. And I think we should do a little bit more informing the people who these committee people are. We put a new one on. We kind of like to know who they are, but there's a lot of difference between the people we hire, a group of people, is different people we put on that committee. And I personally myself, and along with these, like to know a little bit more of who they are. We had a lot of comments. We get people with some of this funding and don't know what it's all about. So I like these members of these committees, we should know a little more about. I didn't repeat again, I'd like to know more about them.
Thank you, David. Any other comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to commission comment regarding meeting business.
Move for the approval of the consent agenda.
Support.
Been moved and supported to approve the consent agenda. Is there any comments by the commission? Seeing none, would you please approve the consent agenda?
It's not showing?
No.
Does that one show it? No.
Consent agenda has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 344. Madam Clerk, when you're ready.
Resolution number 73 dated January 16, 2018, and resolution number 47 dated January 19, 2021, approved contracts with Environmental Systems Research Institute, Incorporated for analytical software systems enterprise agreements. The city's Information Technology Department is now requesting to continue to contract services with this same company. This software provides geographic information systems, GIS, capabilities, and provides mapping information that is used throughout the entire city by various departments for purposes such as mapping out parcel boundaries, utility locations, and asset management. This resolution seeks authorization of a contract for analytical software systems from Environmental Systems Research Institute, Incorporated, in a not-to-exceed 3-year amount of $138,975.
I move for the approval of Resolution 344.
Support.
Been moved and supported to approve Resolution 344. Are there any comments or questions? Commissioner Patrick O'Donnell.
I would like to say that one of the great things on our website is the GIS software. It's very useful, answering a lot of citizen questions and needs that they need for the city. So I totally approve this.
Thank you, Commissioner. Please vote on Resolution 344. Resolution 344 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 345. Madam Clerk, when you're ready.
On January 15, 2023, the city awarded $111,090 of home ARP funds to be used over 2 years for the Drop-In Self-Help Center, DBA the Share Center, to establish a full-time equivalent FTE position for a peer support and recovery coach, as well as to provide bus passes, IDs, and vital records. In addition to this funding, the center has actively pursued alternative funding sources, securing support from the Debbie K. Kellogg Foundation, specifically designated for the procurement of bus passes, IDs, and vital records. This proposed amendment to the agreement reallocates funds from the original budget to accommodate additional expenses. The home ARPA funds will now be utilized to support the peer support and recovery coach positions, cover mileage reimbursement for the use of their van transporting clients to and from rehab facilities, as well as address indirect cost up to 10% of the budget. This strategic adjustment ensures that the funds are optimally allocated to enhance the effectiveness and reach of the Drop-In Self-Help Center's vital services. These funds were provided to the city through the American Rescue Program, ARP, through the Federal Home Investment Partnership Program. On March 11, 2021, President Biden signed ARP into law, which provides over $1.9 trillion in relief to address the continued impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the economy, public health, state and local governments, individuals, and businesses. This resolution seeks authorization for the city manager to execute a First Amendment to Home ARP agreement with the Drop-In Self-Help Center for Supportive Services, dated January 15, 2023.
I move for the approval of Resolution 345.
Support.
Been moved and supported to approve Resolution 345. Are there any comments by the commission? Seeing none, would you please vote on Resolution 345? Resolution 345 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 346. Madam Clerk, when you're ready.
Battle Creek Transit's Local Coordinating Committee, LCC, met on December 12, 2023 to review and discuss the attached application. Also, Battle Creek Transit's Local Advisory Council, LAC, met December 19, 2023 to review and discuss Battle Creek Transit's Vehicle Accessibility Plan. A 30-day public comment period is being provided in January and February, to which the provided applications will be noticed in the Battle Creek Shopper and on Transit's website. This proposed resolution of intent is to apply for state financial assistance for Battle Creek Transit for fiscal year 2025 under Act Number 51 of the Public Acts of 1951 as amended.
I move for the approval of Resolution 346.
Support.
So it's been moved and supported to approve Resolution 346. Any comments by the commission? Seeing none, would you please vote on Resolution 346? Resolution 346 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 347. Madam Clerk, when you're ready.
Each year at this time, Battle Creek Transit works with area human service agencies and organizations to develop and submit grant applications to MDOT. Funds requested in these grant applications are available under MDOT's Specialized Services and Section 5310 programs to help eligible agencies and organizations provide transportation services to senior citizens and persons with disabilities. The application was developed as part of Battle Creek Transit's outreach plan that was created in response to a request by the City Commission, as well as a review by MDOT of its grant procedures and how they impacted grantees. This included timely notification of the availability of state transportation funds to area agencies and technical assistance to help these agencies develop and submit applications. This resolution seeks support for the submittal of an application by the city on behalf of the human service agencies to MDOT for state funds for fiscal year 2024 beginning October 1, 2024. This resolution also authorized the city manager to execute agreements with MDOT and the Human Service Agencies for fiscal year 2025 specialized services funds.
I move for the approval of Resolution 347.
Support.
So moved and supported to approve Resolution 347. Are there any comments by the commission? Seeing none, would you please vote on Resolution 347? Resolution 347 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 348. Madam Clerk, when you're ready.
The City of Battle Creek Transit oversees the Battle Creek Intermodal Center. The facility underwent an extensive renovation in 2012. Due to the length of time since the renovation, the facility is starting to show signs of needed upgrades, including current inoperable lighting fixtures, which pose challenges of safety to our public. This application would replace interior and exterior lighting with energy-efficient LED fixtures that not only address the concerns of safety, but would offer a more environmentally friendly station environment for both passengers and the community. This resolution seeks support for submittal of an application to the Michigan Department of Transportation, MDOT, for fiscal year 2025 for inter-service capital funding.
I move for the approval of Resolution 348.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to approve Resolution 348. Are there any comments or questions by the commission? Seeing none, would you please vote on Resolution 348? Resolution 348 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 349.
The goal of the New Freedom Program is to provide additional tools to overcome existing barriers facing Americans with disabilities and seniors seeking integration into the workforce and full participation in society. Lack of adequate transportation is a primary barrier for work for individuals with disabilities. This application will focus on mobility management and operations. This resolution seeks approval for the submittal of an application to the Michigan Department of Transportation, MDOT, for fiscal year 2025 for New Freedom funding.
I move for the approval of Resolution 349.
Support.
Been moved and supported to approve Resolution 349. Are there any comments by the commission? Seeing none, would you please vote on Resolution 349? Resolution 349 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 350.
In 1999, the U.S. Department of Transportation implemented revised regulations regarding the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, DBE, program and 49 CFR Part 26 of the Department of Transportation Federal Regulations specifying recipients of federal funding are required to establish overall goals for potential contracting opportunities for certified DBE suppliers. Based on the number of current DBA firms located in Calhoun County versus the total number of firms in Calhoun County, BCT has established a race-neutral goal of 0.04% for fiscal year 2023-2024. There is currently one DBE certified firm physically located within Calhoun County per the Michigan Unified Certification Program directory and 2,409 firms located in Calhoun County per the 2020 U.S. Census. This resolution seeks approval and adoption of the Battle Creek Transit Disadvantaged Business Enterprise DBE program for fiscal year 24 as attached and supports and adopts a DBE participation goal of 0.04%. This resolution also approves the city manager to sign and submit this program to the Federal Transit Administration in accordance with regulations of the U.S. Department of Transportation, 49 DFR Part 26.
I move for the approval of Resolution 350.
Support.
Been moved and supported to approve Resolution 350. Are there any comments or questions by the commission? Seeing none, would you please vote on Resolution 350? Resolution 350 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 351.
A solicitation was issued December 4, 2023 for the wastewater treatment plant scum ejector pump replacement project. This project consists of the removal and replacement of scum ejector pumps located in the I&E vault of the City of Battle Creek's wastewater treatment plant. Work shall include the removal and replacement of piping and valves, electrical requirements including installation of conduit, wire, disconnects, control panel wiring, and programming, along with the removal and installation of scum ejector pumps. This resolution seeks acceptance of the lowest responsible bid for the wastewater treatment plant scum ejector pump replacement project from Shouldice Industrial Manufacturers and Contractors Incorporated in a not-to-exceed amount of $364,140.
Move for the approval of Resolution 351.
Support.
Been moved and supported to approve Resolution 351. Are there any comments or questions by the Commission? Seeing none, would you please vote on Resolution 351? Resolution 351 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is the final Resolution 352.
Resolution number 321, dated December 19, 2023, approved a contract with Motorola for mobile video equipment for the police department. It is now necessary to purchase modems that support the new equipment. Discount Cell is the authorized distributor from Verizon, our internet provider. This resolution seeks authorization for a purchase order to Discount Cell LLC for LTE routers for the police department in an estimated amount of $102,787.65 with unit prices prevailing.
I move for the approval of Resolution 352.
Support.
Been moved and supported to approve Resolution 352. Are there any comments or questions by the Commission? Seeing none, would you please vote on Resolution 352? Resolution 352 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is the general public comment. If you'd like to make general public comment regarding matters over which the City Commission has control, please raise your hand and wait for us to acknowledge you, and then come forward to the podium. You will have 3 minutes to make your comment. Please state your name and address prior to beginning your comment. David Moore.
David Moore. About the transit, one thing that hasn't been mentioned. You know, I've been driving this bus for 20-something, 40 years, whatever. And I've been on these routes. They're 30-minute routes. And they've been trimming these routes up. And no wonder that people are not riding. One reason why a lot of people are not riding a bus, they ain't going, spanning out more like they used to. They close to bring it into the town more and more and more. And this list to a route. It takes about half an hour route, only about 20 minutes to get in. I always mentioned this as before. I for hourly routes. All these routes should be an hour route and go out and cover more ever. Bedford, it's just street behind me, Morgan Road. It just cut off right there. You know, they just go out to the rolling hills out there and out in Bedford a little bit more. They just bring it, shorten these routes up all the time. These 20-minute, these half-hour routes are like 25 or 20 minutes. Some of these hour routes are down much as 45 minutes. They've been trimming up these routes more and more and more. If we can stand out in a township, out in the areas more, out in Bedford or out in Penfield or Springfield, they can probably get more people ride the van. It's one of the things that I think people ain't been riding the bus. we're just shortening these routes up. You know what I'm saying here. But I think we should stand them out and go into hourly routes. That's one thing I'd like to see for the transit.
Thank you, David. Any other public comment at this time? Reese Atkins.
Reese Atkins, 3600 West Michigan. I want to go back to the original thing we had at the beginning of the night for just a quick second, if I can. I want to say thank you to Commissioner Sims, because he hit it right on the button. I talked to him afterwards, but I wanted to bring it here. You're talking about different things to work on and other things that need to be worked on. Let's look at housing for people with felons, okay? It is very difficult for us to get any type of housing in any way, shape, or form. I've got a young lady that's down at the Sheriff Center right now that's trying to work with me to get housing and cannot, because all these housing developments, all these apartment complexes, will not bring a felon into their facility because they don't like it, because we are felons, okay? Let's look, and they do based on your income. All these private landlords don't want to do based on income. So we're doomed right from the beginning, and I know a lot of us, including myself, have been out here almost 10 years, have not done anything wrong, have cleaned our lives up, but we're still being penalized in housing because these housing development complexes do not want us. So let's look at, helping these people that do have felonies get housing where they can actually live and live on their own. Thank you.
Thank you, Reese. Any other public comment at this time? Yes, Autumn Smith.
Good evening. I'm speaking on a couple issues. One, I appreciate the presentation by the clerk about voting. I think that's a very, very important part of our constitutional republic. But I'm not saying her, but what she just presented was in violation of 2 U.S.C. 7, which is federal law. The Tuesday after the next first Monday in November, every even-numbered year is established as the date of election for each of the states. So 9 days of voting is violating that federal law times 8. Another thing I want to ask is, I did have a discussion with Commissioner Jake Smith about this issue. I'm going to ask, since during our private conversation he didn't feel, I'm not going to speak for you, but basically he did not support this issue, ask you to please rescind our welcoming city ordinance that was passed in 2016. A welcoming city is basically identical to a sanctuary city. Now, a sanctuary city is some place that harbors illegal immigrants, and as we know right now, we have a wide open border, and I have no problem with welcoming people that come here legally. Even if they weren't a criminal before they crossed the border, the fact that they crossed the border illegal makes them a criminal. And I spoke to Commissioner Smith. We obviously had some differences, and one of the issues he said is he didn't feel like it was something like that, but how you feel about a legal issue is irrelevant to whether it's constitutional or not. It is a violation of the treason clause if you allow this, and we do not rescind this. Unvetted people from various criminal cartels, human traffickers, organization, gangs, MS-13, are coming. They're even making them police officers. Also, some governors and mayors in some of these states, of these sanctuary and welcoming cities, are asking citizens to open their house up to house them. That is in direct violation of the Immigration and Nationality Act. So they're asking us to break the law on their behalf. Just because the constitutionality of a law hasn't been tested does not mean the law isn't constitutional. Also, Marbury versus Madison, any law that is repugnant to the Constitution is invalid. You guys are breaking your oath of office. You guys swore to uphold and protect and defend the state constitution, Michigan Constitution right here. All political power is inherent to the people, and the government is instituted for their equal benefit, security, and protection. You are to protect us. You are to advocate for us. You work for us. Please consider rescinding the welcoming city for the security of the constituents you were duly elected to protect. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments at this time? Yes, John?
John Kennevic, 234 South Avenue. In regards to people driving in the buses, you look through the windows and you'll see people above the seats. That's how you know if they're full or not. Another comment in regards to the person back there about how wonderful community action is. I videotaped as an independent producer out of AccessVision, the local advisory council. A number of people that were on that council were 501(c)(3)s that were voting themselves money in the LCC. And if they couldn't do that, and if there was a competitor that wanted to be in there, they would discourage that in the LAC that I recorded. Also, if they had to spend money to a person that wanted to compete, giving transit to people that were disabled, they'd make sure that it was as small amount as possible, because any money coming to that person would reduce money coming to their 501(c)(3)s. Now, at the commission meeting on the second commission meeting of November, the mayor of Battle Creek ruled a person twice out of order because he was speaking, which no one in this area could actually hear what he was saying. And he also told them, you can't move around. I also explained a little while later at another commission meeting that a gentleman's agreement was in place when no other commissioner said anything in regards to the mayor disrupting his own meeting. A comment was made by the Ward 1 commissioner saying they talked to other commissioners outside of that meeting, but you only had your opportunity by December 5th. That's when you could have come together and said, Mayor, this person was not causing a problem. You were causing the problem. You never did that, so you still have a gentleman's agreement. You still agree now that it's okay for what the mayor did. You do it publicly. You don't do it behind people's backs. Finally, the second commission meeting in December, a commissioner was giving a rhyme. She was talking about certain things in her rhyme. Find it interesting. She was talking about the pediments that were repaired in 2023 on this building. In 2017, they were falling off this building. The code compliance never issued an order to repair this building. They put a fence around it and put a blockade over the the side entranceway. That side entranceway was designed so people wouldn't be killed by falling concrete. The Battle Creek Inspection Division never issued a dangerous building on this building. You apply all your standards of these codes against the citizens of Battle Creek, but then you turn around and say, not for us. We do not have to apply those standards to the government of Battle Creek. I believe the word hypocrisy sits in that word. It describes it quite well. You want to solve problems, you want to do them equally, or you should remove those laws that you target your citizens and make it harder on them while excuse yourselves. Thank you.
Any other public comment at this time? Yes, sir.
5856 Magnolia Avenue. That's what we were talking about earlier. I heard something about the buses. They were possibly going to go countywide, and I was wondering what what was decided on that, if anything. Let's see. That's it.
Thank you. Any other public comments at this time? Seeing none, any commission comments? Commissioner Jake Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank Ms. Smith because while we did disagree on this issue, we had a lengthy exchange on it, but it was respectful, and we disagreed, but I think we left the conversation, at least I did, knowing that, we had a respectful disagreement on a hot button issue, and I think we could use a lot more of that just in general. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Patrick O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank everybody involved in the last snow emergency we had for taking care of our community, citizens keeping the roads clear so we can get the plows through, getting your driveways cleaned up, first responders getting to where they needed to be to for all that, the city manager for putting out as much communications as we could get to know what's going on with that. It is what it is, wintertime, and I just want to thank everyone for stepping up and making sure that everyone in this community could be as safe as possible during these times. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Seeing no further comments, meeting's adjourned. Thank you for attending.